So I'm not here to do a huge presentation or anything. It's just going to be a quick, short, sharp replay of an actual event that happened in history. Sue has an Irish-Italian heritage, and one really tired afternoon turned to me and quite politely, suggested that I tell him what the hell's going to happen next because this is starting to really hurt. And it got me really thinking about, especially my last 4 years of working with big organisations, because why I'm so passionate about this is because everyone tells me that you can't do this in big companies, and it's just not true. What I've noticed is that there are some common elements that happen, which may be a prediction of the future. So what I thought I'd do is just get up here in sort of 10 minutes before you go to a break and give you some things to think about, maybe come and talk about or talk to each other about that you're really going to have to deal with when you start to take on these kinds of transformations. So the first thing is to stay very clear on what this is about. It's about understanding customer value and then lining your entire organisation up to delivering that value. So never lose sight of that's what it's about. Secondly, what's the first pattern that customers are trying to do going into this? The first thing is we're trying to simplify a business model. Most organisations that I deal with are based on a heritage of 20, 30, 40 years of process, management thinking, principles, hierarchies, architectures. We need to simplify those down because you can't create speed without doing that. Then what you need to do is, once you really understand that, line everything up to delivering value. So if you really know what value is, line everything up to making sure that happens. So that's the first pattern. The second pattern is these kind of 5 things, and there's probably more than 5, but these are the 5 that for me can continue to repeat themselves with all the organisations that I have the pleasure of working with. So the first one is that we tend to lose sight of the customer. One of the things I like to talk to people about is if you were a bank and I came to you and I said, list for me the 10 things, and you can probably do this in your own head right now, the 10 things that you would do if you were going to give a customer a mortgage. And I'm sure if you think about it, it would be things like a digital mortgage advisor, product bundling, something to do with rates that you would combine. If I now turned to you and said, list the 10 things that you would do to put a customer into a home, think about how different those 10 things would be. Think about the different skills you would require to make that happen, the different team constructs that you'd put together to make that happen. That's what customers want. So when we talk about don't forget the customer, it's about understanding purpose through the customer's eyes, understanding what is it they need. And then saying to yourself, it's okay to have wild and wacky ideas. It's okay for those at the top to think that they know everything. That's okay. What we have to change is what we act on. So if there's a great idea, what is the thing we can do to prove that it will work? That's where we've got to get to. And once we do know, that's when you start to invest. Second thing, job security. What happens very, very quickly? Everyone starts to fixate on their role. And what happens when we start to fixate on roles is that we start to become very individual, and the changes start to happen because of people, not because of the outcomes that we're trying to achieve. As leaders, it is critical that you disconnect this. You've got to release the valve on this one, which is don't allow ambiguity to be confused with job security. You must teach your organisation how to deal with ambiguity, because this environment, test and learn, hypothesis-based, it's all ambiguous. You need to trade off certainty for accuracy. Don't ask for what's going to happen in 12 months. Iterate your way towards it with accuracy. Right? That's really important. So we need to avoid this culture of self. And I've got lots of anecdotal evidence without the time to kind of leap into it and give it all to you. But there are roles and functions that exist in your organisation today, control mechanisms, program managers, the control points, who, as they start to learn this kind of way of working, realise that what they do today is not what they need to do anymore. So you need to help them evolve into what's important for the organisation to deliver value. The classic overbalancing of exemptions. And what I mean by that is the people who we allow to not change. There are some common ones. Platforms, infrastructure, functional business units, right? We call them horizontals. Somehow, if I'm a horizontal, I don't need to change. All that's going to happen is everybody will justify that they're a horizontal because we're fixated on standardisation, efficiency. So don't allow that to happen. Make the bar really, really high for anything to be called a horizontal, for anything to be standardised. What I call avoiding Conway's law, which says don't make decisions because of how you were structured today. You've got to start from customer value backwards. A lot of organisations, when they go through change can be stressful, and in times of stress, we always revert to what we know is true. Therefore, we start to restructure based on today's hierarchy. We restructure based on today's roles. We restructure because of the technology we've invested in. If you start from customer value, you'll find you get the answer correct. Then you can deal with some of the issues that are going to result. The last one there, the functional inclusion piece is really important. This is me pausing to make sure I don't aggravate anybody, but it's just not possible to think that someone that's been in HR, any HR people in the room? Okay, we'll start there then. That someone's been in HR for 30 years, knows how to do HR in this new world, that's just not logical to think that way. There'll be superstars in there. There'll be people who naturally think this way. They're the ones we want. We want the coalition of the willing. Bring those people in. But you've got to go and experiment. You've got to go and explore how to do this. One of the big epiphany moments for me in a large financial services organisation I've worked with in America was where the HR group realised that their role wasn't to go and see whether or not the ways of working that we're creating fit within the HR policies. Their role was to create HR policies to enable us to work the way we want to work. That's why we've got to be inclusive with them. My favourite, feeding the engine of non-change. So be very, very careful about the language that gets used. It's too easy to try and limit change shock by making it look like we're not changing at all. Using the same language, right? So we're not really changing. You still report to the same person. We just need to do something a little bit different. No, right? That stops people changing. The change is going to happen anyway, right? It's like that relationship that you try and break up by saying, we're going to stay friends. No, you're not. All right? Cut early, it's all better later. So don't hold back that change. You've got to really think that through. And, you know, not just talk in terms of hoping people feel good about it, hoping people feel better. So make sure that everyone understands what it is, and again, then deal with what you've got to deal with from that. One of my favourites is this kind of language interchange of values and benefits. So just realise that when we talk about value today and when we talk about customer value, we are not talking about profit, cost reduction, any of those things that are yours, right? That's the internal stuff. We're not talking about that stuff at all. And then the last one, my favourite, and I guess the last three of them are sort of like the compromises, right? Don't get stuck in transition. What I mean by that is paint a picture, right? So this beautiful block of land, maybe up in Kinglake somewhere, it's got great views, rolling hills, and you want to go and live there, so you buy the block of land and you visit it every weekend. Sounds very close, doesn't it? I've been here, I've done this. And then at some point you sort of turn to your partner and you say, you know, this is just a great view. Why don't we just put the caravan on here and we'll just come and live here straight away? 6 months later I come and visit you and there's little garden beds in front of the caravan and maybe a gravel driveway leading up to the front door. 12 months later you're extending the caravan. We're starting to pave the driveway. So the point here is don't make transitional steps that pave the driveway. Don't do anything that stops you from reaching the ultimate goal. And don't do it to reduce noise of vocal minorities, because they will exist. They're going to come at you. Don't get caught constantly trying to make everybody quiet, make everything okay, make everybody feel comfortable, right? There are people in the organisation that won't come on the journey with you. That's okay. So make sure that your reason for the transitional step is not to keep people quiet. It's based on criticality, right? It's to genuinely move you towards purpose. As Sue said before, it's genuinely about making sure that you're measuring the things that are right that tell you you're progressing correctly. So, my 4 things, my close, is just to say, take a step. There's some things you can do straight away to take a step. Reduce the size of your work. I can largely guarantee that if you don't do that early, the other things will be very difficult to do, right? Because they're all based on small packages of work. As leaders, give orders with minimum constraints. So it's okay to be the visionary. It's okay to ask for the outcome, but then it must be okay to allow teams to go and work out for themselves and innovate the way to create that outcome and to make it happen. So just the minimum constraints. And sometimes those minimum constraints are quite big. There is a budget that you can spend. There is a time we need an answer by. That's okay. Minimum constraints. Obviously, you'll hear this a lot today, make it safe to explore. So you can't have teams go off and explore and then tell them that it's all wrong. So that language becomes quite important. So if a team comes to you and says something that you're quite shocked about, you know, that they're going to go and make a button blue instead of green, and you know it's got to be green, the answer is not, no, go and make it green. The answer is, what data did you have to tell you it needed to be blue? And if they have data, that's it. You've got to be quiet and let them go and do it. So making it safe to explore. And then the last one, measure improvement, not achievement. It is the obsession with achievement, it is the obsession with completion that is stopping our organisations from being truly agile, truly nimble and delivering value to customers. Thank you.